my book friends. I'm Addie and you are now watching Books and Tea Time, and today we're going to be doing one of my very favorite videos to film every year. We are going to be doing the mid-year freakout tag, and I have my fun, wacky floral number to help us get in the mood of the mid-year summer vibe. So yeah, we are going to be doing the mid-year freakout tag. This tag is really old at this point. I'm actually not sure when this tag was even created, and I don't, off the top of my head, know who the original tag creator is anymore. I love filming the mid-year freakout tag. It's a great way to just pause and assess how my reading year is going and kind of look back on all the things that I've read, in addition to, of course, planning for the second half of the year. I have my laptop here because I've got some of my stats so far for the year, and then I also have the question. Today is June 8th, and as of today, I have read 56 books this year. I have physically read or digitally read over 7,000 pages, and I have listened to over 360 hours of audiobooks. My most read genres are romance, mystery, horror, and fantasy, which I think is a really great snapshot of the reading year that I've had so far, because I have been really enjoying the mystery genre and reading a lot more of it. I talked about that a lot in my January wrap up, and I also have been reading a lot more horror because of the book club that I run, where we read mystery, thriller, and horror books. I've also been back on my fantasy grind, which I really am so happy with. And then I feel like romance is a pretty standard for me because I read them so quickly and I really enjoy the romance genre. It's usually a palate cleanser between some of my other like larger fantasy books and like the more like gruesome horror books that I'm reading. But without further ado, let's just get into the questions. The first question, as always, is what is my best book of the year? And as per usual, I don't have just one. I was able to narrow it down to two though. So my first one is You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Byeee. I have not managed to get my hands on a physical copy of this yet. I originally read it as an audiobook, and I loved this book. I read it as part of a reading vlog that I did. I did a Black authored romance reading vlog in February, kind of like as a Valentine's Black History Month celebration vlog, and I read a lot of fantastic books for that vlog, so if you haven't seen it yet, I really highly recommend it. But You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty just absolutely took my breath away. I actually feel like this shirt matches the one cover quite well. I have seen it in a couple of different stores, but I've only seen the paperback edition, which has like a yellowy background, but I really like the orange background of the hardback, so I'm holding out until I find a hardcover copy of it at like a used bookstore or an indie bookstore when I go shopping. But I need to own this, and I need to reread it and annotate it. You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty is Byeee Emezi's contemporary romance, and it follows our main character, Faye, who a few years ago lost her husband, her partner, in a pretty traumatic car accident where her partner died and she lived. And she's kind of getting back out into the dating scene, and she's dating a couple of people. She ends up getting invited to go with one of her kind of like situationships. He's from the islands, and so he invites her to go see his home, and his dad is this famous chef, and they go there and they basically falls in love with his dad. So it's very messy, but I absolutely adored the writing. It's so lush. The descriptions of food, the descriptions of art, because Faye is an artist, our main character, and Alim, who is the dad, who is also a big character in the book, is a chef. So like you can see how they both experience like art and passion, and they just connect so deeply over the losses of their partners, and their love is just so beautiful. I love Alim as a character so much. Alim Blake, he deserves everything and more, and so does Faye, but like I don't know, something about Alim just touched my heart so deeply. They're also both bisexual main characters, which I loved. and just everything about it from start to finish just really captivated me. A quick him as he knocked this out of the park. I mean, they always knock it out of the park. Every genre, everything that they attempt, they masterfully craft, and I am just happy that I finally read it because it has been on my TBR for a while and I finally did it. So I can't recommend it enough. It is just absolutely exceptional. And if you want more of my thoughts on the specific like plot beats of the story, I would recommend the reading vlog that I mentioned. Also, as a second contender for best book of the year, Like a Hammer: Poets on Mass Incarceration, edited by Diana Marie Delgado. Last time I talked about this, I mentioned that I started this as an ebook, and by the time I finished the foreword, not even the introduction, but by the time I finished the foreword by Kianga Yamada Taylor, I ordered a physical copy because I just knew I couldn't not own this book. And I ended up finishing the ebook copy before my physical copy came in, but this is very, very high up on my list to reread and annotate. So in this collection, you have poems both from people who are or have been incarcerated and also family members and friends, just people who are intimately connected with people who have been or are currently incarcerated. It does so much to illuminate the system of the prison industrial complex in America and how it intersects with so many other oppressive systems at play in our society and in our culture in America. And every poem is just so unique and just gives you this hyper-specific lens for looking at this issue, where by the time you're done, you have this almost like stained glass window, kaleidoscopic view of incarceration. And it's just beautiful. It's brilliant. It moved me so deeply. After that, we have Best Sequel, which is the book I literally just finished, the last book that I read, and that is Daggerbound by T. Kingfisher. This is actually not out yet. I read an advanced reader copy that I got on NetGalley. It's the sequel to Sword Heart, which I do own, so I'll just show that to you really quickly. First of all, gorgeous. I also read this year and absolutely loved it. It's such a great time, but Daggerbound was even better. So this series is a romantasy series by T. Kingfisher. So Sword Heart is the first book in the series. Daggerbound is the second. There is going to be a third, but each book in the series follows one of three mercenaries that in the past were kind of like bonded or forged to be immortally connected with swords. So these magical swords are like bonded to these individuals, and whoever wields the sword becomes like their master, I guess. It's kind of like a genie situation, and so they are bound to protect the wielder of the sword. And what I just love so much about this series is you've got these like hardened mercenaries who have like some serious trauma and like have lived for hundreds of years at this point. And then all of a sudden, these most like kind-hearted but silly and charming little souls end up wielding their sword, and it turns into a romance. And again, I loved Sword Heart, but Daggerbound, it was so good. I'm still kicking my feet thinking about this book. We follow our main characters, Edmund, who is a scholar, and he is an ex-priest for like this order that he is kind of more or less running away from. And he is doing one last job for this order, and the job is to transport these artifacts from one city to another. On his journey, he gets robbed and accidentally, not even on purpose, but accidentally draws the sword, which is one of the artifacts that houses the dervish. And so obviously when Edmund wields the sword, the dervish becomes responsible for him, and they just go on the most chaotic quest of all quests. And the people that they meet along the way and the characters, like this little found family that they more or less develop, is the most charming and hilarious, butterfly-inducing, romantic little story. I love them so much. I loved it so much. I can't stop thinking about it. And this book comes out in August, I think. I am already dreaming of my finished copy. So pre-order it right now. Question number 3 is new books that you need to read, which I always interpret as books that came out in 2026 that are currently out that you need to read. So for that, I have 3. One of them I don't have a physical copy of yet, but Shattered Gods by Katie Robert, which is the 10th and final installment in the Dark Olympus series, just came out literally last week. I ordered it the day that it came out, and it's not here yet, but as soon as it does get here, I am so excited to read that. So that's one. I also have House of Margins by Tlotlo Samaase, and this one I actually just got the finished copy of because I had the immense privilege of meeting Tlotlo at an author event recently, and they signed my little book. They also signed my copy of Womb City, which I read earlier this year. I recently gushed about this in my recent reads video, but this is her newest release. It just came out at the end of May, and it is like a gothic haunted house horror. So this is definitely very, very high up on my TBR for the next couple of months. And then also Chain of Ideas by Ibram X. Kendi. This came out in March. It's his newest nonfiction title. I'm really looking forward to this. I just know because it's a rather large and dense nonfiction that it's going to be a little bit more of a commitment, but I'm very excited to read it. It's about the origins of authoritarianism in the United States and other countries, which is actually really interesting. It follows authoritarian regimes in a series of different locations around the globe and then tracks the threads that tie authoritarian governments together. So I'm very excited to read this, but just haven't gotten to it yet. A similar question, anticipated releases for the second half of the year. So things that aren't out yet that I am very much looking forward to. First, we have A Trade of Blood, which is the 3rd book in the Anna and Din mystery series by Robert Jackson Bennett. They're fantasy mysteries that are kind of like inspired by Sherlock Holmes, and our main character is kind of like the Watson. I'm super excited for this 3rd installment, and that I just happened to read the first 2 books in this series the same year that the 3rd one was coming out. Very convenient for me. After that, also Back for Blood, Never Whistle at Night Volume 2, edited by, I think, Shane Hawk and Theodore Van Alst Jr. This is the 2nd installment in the Never Whistle at Night anthology collection. The first one I read last year and really, really liked. It is just a collection of dark horror from Indigenous authors. I found so many authors that I added to my TBR. It was also nice to read some authors that I had read like full novels from and read some of their short fiction. And if I'm not mistaken, Back for Blood is specifically horror short stories, where the first one was dark fiction. Then also, we got this announced, I think like a month and a half, 2 months ago, but T. Kingfisher is writing a book about Astarion, the character from Baldur's Gate. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly. Astarion. I've heard both. I love T. Kingfisher. I love playing Baldur's Gate. I'm obsessed with Astarion like everybody else in the world. So I am so excited for that one. And then last but not least for this question, also Harvest Season by Bren Weaver, the sequel to Tourist Season. Oh wow, that literally comes out tomorrow. So that might be cheating a little bit. I liked Tourist Season a lot. I thought it was really good. So I'm excited for the 2nd installment. I'm not sure what to expect, but I'm looking forward to it. Okay, biggest disappointment. This hurts me deep in my gut, deep in my soul to say, but my biggest disappointment of the year is Make Me Better by Sarah Gailey, which is their newest release that just came out in May. It is not bad by any means. I just think this is one that is not for me, and that's okay. Not everything needs to be for me. It's just, it hits a little bit harder when you are anticipating a book from an author that you love and then it comes out and it's not really for you, rather than when you're just like reading a book that doesn't really work for you. It's a little bit of a different experience. So I think most of the disappointment here comes from not it being bad, but it not being what I was hoping for. And like the writing, again, is great. I think that the way that the story is crafted is really great. It's about a cult, and there's like dual timeline situation, and our main character goes to this island that is more or less a cult and is like trying to be a part of their like permanent island culture to heal trauma within herself. You get a lot of different perspectives of different residents of the island, which I did like. I think my ultimate issue with this is it's just too long. I just got a little bit bored at times, and I also think secondarily the other issue that I had is I really, really hated the main character. And I know that's kind of the point. I just feel like it just wasn't for me. Biggest surprise, on the other hand, we have Odd Body by Rose Keating. This is a short story collection. I don't even know what I would call this. It's like horror, but it's not really. It's a little bit speculative. This one is interesting because I started it and read the first couple of stories and it was not really working for me. But then I got to one point where I think it was like the 4th or 5th story, and I loved it. And I was like, okay, maybe this is for me. And then everything after that was exceptional. So this one was a surprise in the sense that it was a little bit of a slow burn. And I'm glad that I held on and kept going because it is a short story collection. The earlier stories, in my opinion, were some of the weaker of the collection. And also, I think for the earlier stories, I was getting used to the writer's style and, you know, the way that they approach storytelling, things like that. I thought that overall it was a really very interesting collection. It's so weird. It's like gross at times, but like in a very interesting way. And some of the stories in here is just like, I can't believe that a human brain thought of that and then wrote it down, but I'm so glad that it did so that I could experience it. If you like weird girl horror, if you like Mona Awad, Atessa Moshfegh, I think that this would really be for you. Okay, new favorite author. We also kind of have a tie for this one. First, Cassandra Khaw. I read 2 of their books this year. I read 3. I've read The Salt Grows Heavy, which I loved so much, and The Library at Hellebore. Both I read for my Trans Rights Readathon vlog, so I'll have that linked up above. I really liked both of them. And then most recently, I read Nothing But Blackened Teeth, which I didn't really enjoy as a story, but the writing, again, is just so consistently great across the 3 books that I've read from Cassandra Khaw, so I would definitely consider them a new favorite. And then also for new favorite authors, I have to give a shout out to TJ Alexander. I read both of their historical romances, A Gentleman's Gentleman and A Lady for All Seasons. Both are so good. Most charming, delightful, queer romps that you will ever read. Great historical fiction. If you're a fan of historical romance, this is simply a must. One of their contemporary romances is on my current TBR for June, so I'm definitely going to continue working my way through their backlist because they have completely won me over. I am obsessed. New fictional crush. Both Tyler and Stella from Game On by Nevessa Allen, which I read in January and also devoured and absolutely loved. Both of them. Absolutely new fictional crushes. But then also I have to give an honorable mention / shout out to Aria from the Fake Boyfriend Fiasco. Talia Hibbert knows how to write a like scary, witchy, black cat personality type of woman, and it gets me every single time. Talia, you have a gift. I don't know what else to say. New favorite character, not necessarily crush. I have to give this to Steris from the Wax and Wane series by Brandon Sanderson. This is like the second era Mistborn series. I love her character so much. She's another one that like you get little tiny bits and pieces of her and you're like, oh, she's so interesting. Say more about that. And then as the series goes on, you get to know her so much better, and just everything about her, I'm obsessed. She is a fantastic character, and I'm just so glad that Brandon Sanderson wrote her in so many scenes and like allowed her character to grow and like the arc that she goes on. I just loved it so much. But I really did have a lot of fun reading the Wax and Wane books. I read all of them over the past like 2.5 months. I read all 4 of them, and I read Mistborn Secret History. So I'm on my Cosmere grind, guys. I'm doing way better than I expected. When I said at the beginning of the year that I was going to read the Cosmere, I did not think that I would be where I am right now, but here we are. Okay, a book that made me cry. Usually when I do this one, it's like books that made me sad. Books that made me like tear up a little bit. I bawled my eyes out like a baby. I was snotting, actively weeping while listening to this book, and that is The Last Devil to Die by Richard Osman. This is, I think, the 4th book in the Thursday Murder Club series. I was sitting at my dining room table doing a puzzle, home alone, no one around, listening to this audiobook out loud on my speakers, just openly weeping. I had to pause the book so that I could get up and blow my nose. It was that bad. I can't say what specifically made me cry because it's a little bit of a spoiler. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. But I really enjoyed the Thursday Murder Club series. It's another one that, like, I liked the first book, but then by the time the second book rolled around, I was like, oh, I really care about these characters. Like, I am deeply emotionally attached to all of them, which is why by the time the 4th book rolls around, I'm like, oh, this is bad. On the reverse, a book that made me happy, I am going to give this to A Lady for All Seasons. This book made me so profoundly happy. It is just like a comedy of errors, queer Regency romp. It is so funny. It's got just the most delightful characters. The full cast is just so lovable and quirky and unique. Just everything about it was so heartwarming. The cameos from Lord Byron, I simply cannot. It was so good. If you need to feel light in your heart and your soul, read these books by TJ Alexander. I promise you, they will not disappoint. They're just so good. Also, the audiobooks for both of them are really good. Last but not least, books that I must read before the end of the year. Okay, so the way that I approached this question this time is I picked 6 books for 6 months of the year that we have left, and I picked all of them from my physical TBR because at the beginning of the year, I set the goal for myself to read 15 books from my physical TBR, which sounds like, Addie, that's so simple. You've read 50 books. How have you not read 15 books from your physical TBR? And to that, I say to you, the library, Libro FM arcs, spontaneously purchasing ebooks and then reading them. It's a problem that I have. I read so much, but I don't read the books that I own. All that to say, I have selected 6 books from my physical TBR that I simply must read before the end of the year. So, starting off, I have Be a Revolution by Ijoma Oluo. This is a nonfiction title, and it's a book that I'm reading for a book club, so I better freaking read it because I have to read it for book club. So this is absolutely very high up on my TBR for the year, and one that I think and I hope is really going to help me focus a lot of the energy that I have stored up inside because of my reaction to what's happening across the world and specifically in the United States. I just hope that by reading these accounts of different ways around the country that small groups are organizing locally and making a difference will help me to do just that. So I'm very excited to read this. Another one that I'm hoping to read very, very soon is Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. In the Dream House, which is Carmen Maria Machado's memoir, was in my top 3 books of 2025. So this is a very, very highly anticipated book for me. This copy was actually gifted to me by one of my friends at work, and so it has a couple of her annotations in it, which I think is fun. Also, Snake Eater by T. Kingfisher. Truly, when I'm caught up on her backlist, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself, but this is a newer release. I actually don't even remember what this is about. Looks like it takes place in a small town desert community, and our main character is running away from her past. I'm into the cover. I want to know what's going on here. This one is one that I'm definitely setting aside for September, October, in like the fall Halloween time. But The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. I actually haven't read anything by Joe Abercrombie yet, but I've heard such fantastic things, and I happened to pick this up on a whim at Half Price Books one day, I think. So, I mean, look at these illustrations. And I've heard great reviews, so definitely one that I want to do, I think it's like a fantasy horror kind of a situation. Also, in keeping with my Cosmere reading journey, I want to continue with the Secret Project Cosmere standalones, and I want to read Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. I have this, oh, Arista's climbing around, so sorry that the camera is moving, but I have the gorgeous Secret Project edition, and my best friend who has read this and also has read most of, if not all of, the Cosmere thinks I'm really gonna like this because I like Tress of the Emerald Sea so much. Okay, Arista, calm down. And then last but not least, this was also on my must-reads by the end of the year in my last video. So just please, if you're still here and watching this video, I need you to go to the comment section and I need you to tell me to read Mirrored Heavens by Rebecca Roanhorse. And I need you to put it in all caps. I need you to put aggressive emojis because this is another book. I started it. I read like the first 170 pages. I loved it. And because I'm physically reading it and annotating it, and I am so bad at physically reading anymore, like if I don't have an audiobook or an ebook, I'm just simply not reading it, which I know is the dumbest thing in the world and a terrible excuse. This is one of my favorite fantasy series of all time, and I hadn't even finished it yet. That's another reason I'm procrastinating it, because I don't want it to be over, but Black Sun and Fevered Star are some of the best fantasy that I've ever read, and I am quite frankly just embarrassed at this point. So please bully me, hold me accountable. Maybe I'll do a reading vlog. I don't know, but I must finish this before the end of the year. And that's that. That's the mid-year freak out tag. Please feel free to let me know in the comments your answers to any of these questions. Also, if you've read any of the books that I mentioned and want to chat about them, I always want to talk about books. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. It means the world to me. I love you all. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if that's your jam, and I will see you in my next video. Happy reading, happy writing, happy living. Peace out.